Testing the audio. God, my computer's getting louder right now. Just 1 second. Alright, testing the audio once again, seeing. Testing it again. Testing. Just looking at my phone, seeing how the stream is on there. Testing. Alright, seems like mic is working, and okay, I'm gonna go to the chat section here, and we'll see my head with the sound wave going on. So, this is one of the first streams I'm doing now, and My name is Sina. I'm not going to show my face for today's stream because I feel like kind of a mess right now. So um, today I kind of want to go over one of the references of a book I was reading. So the current book I was reading is called Party of Conscience, the CCF, the NDP, and Social Democracy in Canada. So it's more of like a political history book, and so a bit of background for me. I'm not familiar with politics in any way. Um, I think like the most that I've been into it is with like the recent election, and that's more to do with being more into that drama, but not really the actual ideologies involved in politics or the history behind Canada's politics, the place that I live. So I do want to talk more about it, and I'm gonna do more streams like this in the future too, where I go over the references of this book and any future books that I read that are free. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick. So yeah, this was the book that I was reading so far. I'm on chapter 5 right now, and the author was Stephanie Bangarth, Jonathan Weier, and Roberta Lexier. I'm saying all their names wrong, but it's a recent book, and yeah, it goes over the past of Canada's history with socialism and social democracy. Um, and whenever I read books, usually I don't look at the actual references and citations that they put, and I want to get more into the habit of doing that. So since this is a history book, and they reference a lot of things that I don't know about, I'm gonna go over this one here. So I'm actually just gonna go over the first reference for today. This is a screenshot of the page 219 of some of their citations of the intro, and the author references a lot of the Regina Manifesto. So I want to go ahead and read that real quick, that actual link over here. The link to this article is actually in the stream description. So yeah, I want to go over the Regina Manifesto. I have no idea about it, even though they probably talked about it in the first chapter. I forgot. So yeah, let's go ahead and read this and see what it's all about. So it was adopted by the founding convention in Regina, Saskatchewan, 1933. So the CCF, which stands for Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, is a federation of organizations whose purpose is the establishment in Canada, cooperative commonwealth in which the principle regulating production, distribution, and exchange will be, yeah, okay, human needs and not the making of profits. Yeah, so they aim to replace capitalism or the capitalist system in Canada with its inherent injustice and inhumanity by social order from which the denomination exploitation of one class by another will be eliminated, in which economic planning will supersede unregulated private enterprise and competition, and in which genuine democratic self-government based upon economic equality will be possible. So from what I know of the CCF, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, so far is like from the book and from reading this, they're mainly a socialist party, and a lot was going on in World War One and the aftermath of World War One, and also the Great Depression. Like these big historical events had that impact. Um, so yeah, like the Regina Manifesto is like one of the key historical events that kind of created the CCF in the first place. And yeah, let's continue reading. So the present order is marked by glaring inequalities of wealth and opportunity, by chaotic waste and instability, and in an age of plenty, it condemns the great mass of the people to poverty and insecurity. Power has become more and more concentrated into the hands of a small, irresponsible minority of financiers and industrialists. To their predatory interests, the majority are habitually sacrificed. Okay, uh, when private profit is the main stimulus to economic effort, our society oscillates between periods of feverish prosperity, in which the main benefits go to speculators and profiteers, and of catastrophic depression, in which the common man's normal state of insecurity and hardship is accentuated. We believe that these evils can be removed only in a planned and socialized economy, in which our natural resources and principal means of production and distribution are owned, controlled, and operated by the people. So, okay, what they were saying so far was private profit is like the main source of our economy, or like what's keeping it up so far, and the prosperity that comes along with our current capitalist system is mainly like people profiting off that. Okay, maybe I need to continue reading more about this. I didn't understand that exactly. Like basically, like in short, capitalism bad, socialism good. That's kind of what I got from this. But yeah, I just need to know. I guess I gotta read more. So the new social order at which we aim is not one in which individuality will be crushed out by a system of regimentation, nor shall we interfere with cultural rights or racial or religious minorities. What we seek is a proper collective organization of our economic resources, such as will make possible a much greater degree of leisure and a much richer individual life for every person. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, like one of the things going on with a lot of people these days, myself included, is we're all kind of working too hard to make a living, and there's not enough time to pursue the things that folks want to do on the side. So I can totally relate to wanting a much greater degree of leisure. That would be fucking awesome. So I don't know. Let's see. This social and economic transformation can be brought by political action through the election of a government inspired by the ideal of the cooperative commonwealth and supported by a majority of the people. We do not believe in change by violence. We consider that both the old parties in Canada are the instruments of capitalist interests, and we cannot serve as cannot serve as agents of social reconstruction, and that whatever the superficial differences between them, they are bound to carry on government in accordance with the dictates of the big business interests who finance them. So when they say the old parties in Canada, they just mean conservative and liberal parties. Uh, to the CCF or to the Regina Manifesto, they're saying that like these two parties mainly support capitalist interests, and they don't want to bring real social change like the CCF tried to do in the 1930s, or did. Um, they probably did something. I need to read more about that, but okay. Yeah, they're just saying here that like they're the Socialist Party at that time compared to the other larger parties, liberal and conservative, especially at the time when it was nearing the Great Depression and labor was becoming so much. Um, it was needed. But yeah, they have like a couple of policies in the Regina Manifesto we can go over too. So let's go over the first one, planning. The establishment of a planned socialized economic order in order to make possible the most efficient development of national resources and the most equitable distribution of national income. Yes, I love equity. So, okay, when they say equitable distribution of national income, they just mean like when people who need money to survive get that money to survive, pretty much. People who need money for food and housing will get that income to have that housing, to have what they need to compete on equal footing, or like to be at equal footing to work with our system that we have now. I love that actually. I am a bit biased here, but we are reading the Socialist Manifesto right now. So the task of the Commission will be to plan for the production, distribution, and exchange of all goods and services necessary to the efficient functioning socialized industries. We provide for to provide for a satisfactory balance between producing and consuming power, and to carry on. Oh, that's pretty good. I mean, we consume a lot. Um, okay, moving on. And to carry on continuous research into all branches of the national economy in order to acquire the detailed information necessary to. Okay, that's the planning policy. Commission will be responsible to the cabinet and will work in cooperation. It is now certain that in every industrial country, some form of planning will replace the uh, disintegrating capitalist system. What? Oh yeah, okay. Okay, they're saying the CCF will provide that in Canada the planning shall be done, but not by a small group of capitalist magnates. Okay. Public interest and responsible to the whole people. Alright. Yeah, okay, so let's continue. Socialization of finance. So, okay, we read the first policy of planning, what they got so far in the 1930s Regina Manifesto. This is just what the CCF started with when they first created the party. Um, and yeah, I'll go over the second one, but first I need to check something out real quick. 1 second. Okay, uh, just testing something out, but let's continue reading the 1933 Regina Manifesto. This is fucking fun, right? Um, all right, so the second uh, policy that they have, socialization of finance. And let's go over this. So, socialization of all financial machinery, banking, currency, credit, and insurance to make possible the effective control of currency, credit, and prices, and the supplement of new productive equipment for socially desirable purposes. Okay. Policies have a lot of jargon, to be honest, but we'll get through this. So, planning by itself will be of little use if the public authority has not the power to carry its plans into effect. Such power will require the control of finance and of all those vital industries and services, which, if they remain in private hands, can be used to thwart or corrupt the will of the public authority. Okay, what they're saying here is like private companies sometimes abuse their power when it comes to the people working in those industries and providing that service, and that's true. Happens all the time. Um, So control of finance is the first step in the control of the whole economy. The chartered banks must be socialized and removed from the control of private profit-seeking interests. And the national banking system thus established it must have at its head a central bank to control the flow of credit and the general price level, and to regulate foreign exchange operations. Yeah, okay. I wouldn't mind making the banks less private. Um, I don't see anything wrong with that. Hopefully, like there won't be predatory lending practices if that came to pass, like or less advertisements to start up this finance plan or invest in this new fucking thing that's gonna bring returns, even though that's just what. Where was I going with this? Okay, I was thinking from like what I read so far here was if finances or no, if the banks were more regulated, there would be less. Maybe there would be less debt. I don't know. I'll continue reading this. A national investments board must also be set up, working in cooperation with the socialized banking system to mobilize and direct the unused surpluses of production for socially desired purposes as determined by the Planning Commission. Insurance companies, which provide one of the main channels for the investment. Okay, yeah, competitive organization. Charge needlessly high premiums for social services that they render. True. Fuck yeah, they do charge a lot. Insurance companies do charge a fuck ton. Um, don't see anything wrong with this. Alright. But especially back then, I don't know. In Canada, like, they fucking make it a law to have car insurance. Like, you can't drive if you don't have car insurance. And it's fucking, like, enormous when you're younger than 20, especially, or even when you're in 20 and like just getting your G license. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. Anyways, I agree that insurance companies charge a lot for what they do, and sometimes they don't even return what was promised, that social service. But anyways, let's continue. So social ownership is the third policy in the Regina Manifesto, and just so you know, Regina's from Saskatchewan and capital. So let's go over the third one. Socialization, dominion, provincial, and municipal, transportation, communications, electric power, and all other industries and services essential to social planning and their operation under the general direction. Okay. freed from day-to-day political interference. Okay. Public utilities must be operated for the public benefit, not for private profit of a small group of owners or financial manipulators. Our natural resources must be developed by the same methods. Such a program means the continuance and extension of public ownership enterprises, in which most governments in Canada must have already gone some distance. Okay, means the extension of public ownership enterprises. So they mean by social ownership. Okay. Only by such public ownership operated on a planned economy can our main industries be saved from the wasteful competition, the ruinous overdevelopment or overcapitalization, which are the inevitable outcome of capitalism. Okay, I need to read that again. So only by such public ownership operated on a planned economy can our main industries be saved from the wasteful competition of our ruinous overdevelopment and overcapitalization. Okay, yeah. They're saying that those are the inevitable outcomes of capitalism, meaning like at some point you're gonna overcharge, you're gonna over develop these industries to become too big to help the public, you know. Um, that's important though, is operated under a planned economy. So like it's important to know that whenever social ownership sorry okay excuse me whenever social ownership or socialist policies come into place, like this does need to be paid attention to because our economy largely relies on our capitalist system, at least in Canada. uh, okay, only in a regime of public ownership and operation will the full benefits accruing from centralized control and mass production be passed on to the consuming public. A regime of public ownership and operation. Okay. Uh, so yeah, there's no room for privately owned, uh, private ownership. Pretty much, this is like suggesting that all industries must have social ownership to benefit the people that they're selling to, from what I understand. Um, I don't know. That's a bit too radical for me. I don't know. But yeah, this is part of their manifesto in the 1930s, and they had to bring up these bold ideas for sure, especially what was going on back then. Transportation, communications, and electric power must come first in a list of industries to be socialized. Others, such as mining, pulp, and paper, and the distribution of milk, bread, and coal and gasoline, in which exploitation, waste, or financial malpractices are particularly prominent, must be brought under social ownership and operation under this policy. I mean, yeah, those are essential things. Like, okay, must come first in a list of industries. Yeah, totally. Transportation, electricity, communications, and food, milk, gasoline. Totally. Like, in my idea, at least right now, it's essential things should not be, I don't know, like in a perfect world of mine, if we existed in that, everyone would get the essentials that they need, right? And it wouldn't be privately owned and sold to by a private barter, pretty much. Like, Like, is there anything wrong with the government providing these things to their people? Like, I don't really see anything wrong with that. Providing food, because, like, anyways, yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like if this were to come into play, there would be at least a lot less people in poverty, a lot less people starving. Um, yeah, I like this sentence quite a bit. So, in restoring to the community its natural resources and taking for industrial enterprises from private to public control, we do not propose any policy of outright confiscation. Okay, they're not going to confiscate anything that a private owner has. What we desire is the most stable and equitable transition to the cooperative commonwealth. It is impossible to decide the policies to be followed by particular cases in an uncertain future, but we insist upon certain broad principles. The welfare of the community must take supremacy over the claims of private wealth, said wealth. The welfare of the community must take supremacy. Yeah, okay. What they're saying is just like the community's got to be put first. The people need to be put first, and not those who have their own private wealth. That's a lot more than the people. In times of war, human life has been conscripted. Should economic circumstances call for it, uh, conscription of wealth would be more justifiable. We recognize the need for compensation in the case of individuals and institutions which must receive adequate maintenance. I'll make it full screen. Okay, must receive adequate maintenance during the transitional period before the planned economy becomes fully operative. But a CCF government will not play the role of rescuing bankrupt private concerns for the benefit of promoters and of stock and bondholders. Okay, I felt like I read right through that. Let me read that again. But a CCF government will not play the role of rescuing bankrupt private concerns for the benefit of promoters and of stock and bondholders. It will not pile up a deadweight burden of unremunerated, unremunerative debt, which represents claims on the public treasury of functionless owner class. I gotta look at this for a second. I actually don't know what this word means. Bringing little or no profit or income. Yep. Okay. Uh, no profit debt. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I will not pile up a deadweight burden of remunerated debt, which represents claims upon the public treasury of a functionless owner class. So it's not, yeah, okay, it's not going to help. That's what they're saying here too, is that um, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, if they were to control the Canadian government, they wouldn't help private owners and they wouldn't help pile onto people's debts, pretty much. You know, I'm not a business owner, so I don't really see anything wrong with this, but I can imagine like some business owners need to be looked after. That's like one of the things with socialist policies is that they do look out for the people, um, and it helps prevent poverty a lot more than capitalism. But um, the thing is, it does prevent some people from growing more than growing their business more, and that could be problematic. Yeah. Anyways, that one kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, it's good that they're not going to pile people with debt or help businesses pile people with debt. Anyways, it's just a policy declaration, pretty much, like in the 1930s. So let's continue. The management of publicly owned enterprises will be vested in boards who will be appointed for their competence in the industry and will conduct each particular enterprise on efficient economic lines. Machinery and management, yeah. But the rigidity of civil service rules should be avoided, and likewise the evils of the patronage system as exemplified in so many departments of the government today. Civil service rules should be avoided. I didn't understand this one exactly. Uh, the evils of the patronage system. I can see, like, okay, for the patronage system of the government, I don't know. Not sure what they mean by that. Just, okay, I need to Google that real quick. Okay, let's go over that definition. Spoil system, called a patronage system, practice in which the political party winning an election rewards its campaign workers and all other active supporters by appointments to government posts. Okay, so they're saying there's the evils of a patronage system exemplified by so many departments. I guess, okay, maybe they mean just like only helping people within that party, only propping up people within the party and not all the people in the country. If that's what they mean. That's what I'm understanding from that sentence. From patronage system or spoil system. So, okay, let's continue. Workers in these public industries must be set free to organize in trade unions and must be given the right to participate in the management of the industry. True. Yes, yeah, so workers shouldn't be brought down, or they shouldn't have to answer to one manager only, and they should be given more leadership roles. We have plenty of unions already, I mean. Okay, anyways, that was the social ownership policy that they went through, and in summary, they're saying that they're not going to assist in any private ownership, people who own private businesses or their private income, and they'd encourage that income to be, from what I gathered, more owned by the people, like it with that business. That's what I'm getting from social ownership. The welfare of the community must take supremacy over the claims of private wealth. That's like a big sentence here. So yeah, they put the welfare of the people over private business owners' income, which to me, there's nothing wrong with that, but there could be some arguments made against that, though that kind of stuff is supposed to help people who are going through a lot of poverty shit. Like, here's the thing, I'm just reading these things right now that um, they make sense to me, but it's like it's really hard to explain why they make sense. Like, because whenever I hear socialist policies, like I'm just like, yes, like why don't we have this? But there are reasons why we don't have this, and I need to read more about it, read more about differences between capitalism, socialism, and all that. But I'm going over this first. So agriculture, security of tenure for the farmer upon his farm, the conditions to be laid out by the individual provinces, insurance against unavoidable crop failure, removal of tariff burdens. Okay. Basically helping the farmer some more, encouragement of producers and consumers cooperatives, the restoration and maintenance of an equitable relationship between prices of agricultural products and those of other commodities and services. Yeah. So they want there to be, this kind of ties into the social ownership as well. Like these crops that they're going to be making and distributing to the people, they want that to be more in government control rather than privately owned and privately selling these crops. That's what I'm understanding. The security of tenure for the farmer upon his farm, which is unparalleled by the present disaster situation of the whole industry, together with the adequate social insurance, ought to be guaranteed under equitable conditions. So the present disastrous situation, they mean like in the 1930s. I'm not sure how it is today, but yeah, that makes sense. With adequate social insurance for these farmers to help them continue to do their work without going bankrupt. Um, the prosperity of agriculture, the greatest Canadian industry, depends on a rising volume of purchasing power in the masses of Canada for all farm goods consumed at home, and upon the maintenance of large-scale exports of the stable commodities at satisfactory prices or equitable commodity exchange. The intense depression in agriculture today, back in the Great Depression times, is a consequence of the general world crisis caused by the normal workings of the capitalistic system, resulting in, number one, economic nationalism, expressing itself in tariff barriers and other restrictions of world trade. Two, the decreased purchasing power of unemployed and underemployed workers and of the Canadian people in general. The decreased purchasing power. Oh, okay. It just means like unemployed and underemployed workers, they can't spend money. And of Canadian people in general, even those who are employed. And the exploitation of both primary producers and consumers by monopolistic corporations who absorb a great proportion of the selling price of farm products, the distribution of milk and dairy products, the packing industry. Let me see. What was number three? It was the exploitation of both primary producers and consumers by monopolistic corporations who absorb a great proportion of the selling price. Oh yeah, for sure. Like the corporations and the distributor of those products are going to get a lot more money than the people who created those products, the people who made those crops, the farmers, pretty much. That's what was going on back then, and yeah, they're saying the last is true. That sucks, and yep, they want to remove that in the agriculture policy in the 1933 Regina Manifesto. So that's what they're going to propose here. So the immediate cause of agricultural depression is the catastrophic fall in the world prices of foodstuffs as compared with other prices. This fall being due in large measure to the deflation of currency and credit. To counteract to the worst effect of this, the internal price level should be raised so that the farmer's purchasing power may be restored. That'd be good. So we propose, therefore, the improvement of the position of the farmer by the increase of purchasing power, social control of financial system. This control must be directed towards the increase of employment as laid down elsewhere, and towards raising the prices of farm commodities, okay, by appropriate credit and foreign policies. Raising the prices of farm commodities that are being sold outside the country. That's what they mean by appropriate credit and foreign policies. Hmm. Okay. I They just like want to increase the purchasing power whenever possible, when they take more social control in that financial system, when farmers sell their products to people. And I'm assuming here they need like raising the prices for when they sell products outside Canada for international trade. That's why they reference foreign policies. Um, okay, let's continue on this. While the family farm is the accepted basis for agricultural production in Canada, the position of the farmer may be much improved by the extension of consumer cooperatives, the purchase of farmer supplies and domestic requirements, and B, the extension of cooperative institutions for the processing and marketing of farm products. Cooperative, okay. Well, yeah, like they need to process and market in order to distribute it. And I guess when they mean cooperative institutions, they would like to that one that cooperates with their social control, I'm assuming, and not privately owned, not looking to screw over the farmer, hopefully. So the third proposal is both of the foregoing to have the suitable state encouragement and assistance. The fourth one is the adoption of a planned system agricultural development based upon the scientific soil surveys directed towards better land utilization and scientific policy agricultural development for the whole of Canada. Sounds good. Add some science in there. The substitution for the present system of foreign trade. So yeah, okay. I'm not familiar with the present with that system back in the 1930s, how they did foreign trading in Canada. So they want to, instead of a system of import boards to improve the efficiency of overseas marketing, to control prices, to integrate the foreign trade policy with the requirements of the national economic plan. All right, this is the problem with reading policy sometimes. I know it's like back in the 1930s, but even today, sometimes when they talk about shit like foreign trade policy, I need to. I'm not knowledgeable enough in that area to understand whether that's good or bad. Um, but anyways, I guess that's having to do with agriculture. The overall summary of this policy in the Regina Manifesto could be like they want to assist the farmer more. They wanted to limit the distribution companies from taking more profit from the farmer's product than the farmer itself themselves, and they want the prices to be fair or higher for those products in their foreign policies. They also want to trade their foreign policy, or no, they want to change their foreign trade policy, but in terms of that, I don't really know the difference. That's just their proposal. But let's continue. But you can see, like in their policy here for agriculture, they're looking out for the worker more than the corporation, um, and that's like the main point of the CCF, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation Party back then, was looking out for the labor workers and the working class, pretty much. It was especially needed back then because of what was going on during the Great Depression, uh, and like post World War One financial distress and all that. But let's go over the fifth policy, external trade. So the regulation in accordance with National Plan of External Trade through Import and Export Boards. Canada is dependent on external resources of supply for more of her essential requirements. Wait, her? What? Okay, there, I guess Canada's a she. So her essential requirements of raw materials and manufactured products, these she can obtain only by large exports of the goods she is best. Okay, this is weird, but this isn't French. Like, countries don't have genders. Alright, anyways. Um, these she can obtain only by large exports of the goods she is best fitted to. Okay, my brain is like jumbling these words right now. Uh, the strangling of our export trade by insane protectionist policies must be brought to an end. The strangling of our export trade. Very passionate. Okay. Um, but the old controversies between free traders and protectionists are now largely obsolete. Protectionists, not perfectionists. In a world of nationally organized economies, Canada must organize the buying and selling of her main imports and exports under public boards, and take steps to regulate the flow of less important commodities by a system of licenses. By doing so, she will be enabled to make the best trade agreements possible with foreign countries. Okay, I need to look at that one more time. So in a world of nationally organized economies, Canada must organize the buying and selling of her main imports and exports under public board. So this is where the social control comes in within the external trade. No private selling to external countries is what they're talking about. They want to regulate the less important commodities by a system of licenses. So like the main important products that are being distributed outside of Canada, they want to take control of, like food and other stuff, I'm assuming. And the ones that aren't as important, or uh, the items that are less important, or less important commodities, they're saying should have a system of licenses to be able to regulate their distribution. Okay. By doing so, she will be enabled to make the best trade agreements possible with foreign countries, put a stop to the exploitation of both primary producer and ultimate consumer, make possible the coordination of internal processing, transportation, marketing of farm products, and facilitate the establishment of stable prices for that stuff, export commodities. Cooperative institutions. So, okay, in summary, they want to take more control of the external trade, especially of important commodities. And with less important commodities, they want to be able to provide licenses, or like the traders need to have licenses in order to regulate that flow of less important commodities. This sounds like more government control in terms of like external trade, um, which kind of goes down that communist socialist ideal policy. And I don't know enough about this to object or support this, so that's just what the Regina Manifesto was about in the 1930s, and that's what the CCF stood for back then, before they turned into the NDP, New Democratic Party of Canada. The CCF was, so just to remember, the CCF was a lot more of a socialist party back then, and then they, or like I should say, Democratic Socialist Party. And when the NDP, when they turned into the NDP, today they're more of like a social democratic party. And the difference between the two ideologies, social democracy and democratic socialism, is just like one is okay with capitalism and the other is completely against it and goes full on with socialist policies. So like you see here in the Regina Manifesto that the CCF is like all for socialist policies. They're like not backing down on this. Uh, they were looking to make radical change during this time because of the events that happened after World War I, with the uh, labor workers being laid off and not making enough money. Uh, the labor unions being created during that time as well, which formed the CCF in the 1930s. But anyways, let's go over cooperative institutions. So the sixth policy is the encouragement by the public authority of both producers and consumers cooperative institutions. And in agriculture, as already mentioned, the primary producer can receive a larger net revenue through cooperative organization of purchasing and marketing. So they already mentioned that, yeah, with cooperative institutions instead of private corporations. Yep, so that's kind of more of the same. They want to extend it to wholesale distribution and into manufacturing. Cooperative enterprises should be assisted by the state through appropriate legislation and through the provision of adequate credit facilities. Okay, some of these overlap with each other, but yeah. The labor code. Okay, so this is important. This is especially for like the recent chapters I've read. The CCF, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, like at the time, really wanted to emphasize that they were the party for the working class, that their main goal was to look out for labor workers. And so let's go over the labor code that they want to implement. So a national labor code to secure for the worker maximum and income leisure, insurance covering accident, old age and unemployment, freedom of association, and effective participation in the management of his industry or profession. Okay. Uh, the specter of poverty and insecurity which still haunts every worker through technological developments have made it possible a high standard for living for everyone is a disgrace with which must be removed from our civilization. Okay. The specter, poverty and insecurity. By that they just mean like it's so easy for folks, especially who aren't making enough money, living off paycheck to paycheck, to go into poverty, and they're at that point of financial insecurity. And so they're saying though technological developments have made possible a higher standard of living for everyone, it's a disgrace which should be removed. The specter of poverty and insecurity. Okay. Makes sense. The community must organize its resources to effect progressive reduction of the hours of work in accordance with the technological development and to provide a constantly rising standard of life to everyone who's willing to work. Sounds good. Sounds good. A labor code must be developed which will include state regulation of all wages, equal reward and equal opportunity of advancement for equal services. irrespective of sex, measures to guarantee the right of work or the right to maintenance through stabilization of employment and through unemployment insurance. Right, we didn't really have that much unemployment insurance back then in the 1930s. Social insurance to protect workers and their families against the hazards of sickness, death, industrial accident, and old age. Limitations of hours of work and protection of health and safety in industry. Both wages and insurance benefits should be varied in accordance with family needs. Okay, so yeah, more social insurances to protect the worker, and to establish an unemployment insurance at the time to like offset that financial insecurity. And we have that like today. We have unemployment insurance, but it's limited. Like they, especially down here, they're saying both wages and insurance benefits should be varied in accordance with family needs. Um, for employment insurance, like Canada's employment insurance, I forgot the exact restrictions that there are with that today. I know you need to have been working for the company for a good term, like a while, and you need to have made a certain amount. There's certain the employment insurance policy today that's going on is more suited for the long-term worker, but the short-term worker, or someone who just got the job, or someone who is working in contracts, they it doesn't really help them. And yeah, like right now we have employment insurance, but it's limited to full-time workers who've been working for a company for a good while. I don't know the exact amount of time, but I know that like while I was looking into uh, employment insurance, like when pandemic first started, this shit happened, or I wasn't eligible for that because I wasn't working for that company and hadn't made that wage, that amount of money within that year to be eligible. And yeah, we were lucky that CERB came into play, but still, it's interesting that even back then they wanted to provide these, but like now that we have some of them. Now we have some of them. But we don't have. It's not for everyone, pretty much. The employment insurance doesn't help a lot of people. Only people who are in full-time, long-term jobs, who are already in kind of a stable situation. It just kind of makes them a bit more stable. But anyways, that was my thoughts on that part. In addition, workers must be guaranteed the undisputed freedom of association and should be encouraged and assisted by the state to organize themselves in trade unions by means of collective agreements and participation in works councils. The workers can achieve fair working rules and share in the control of industry and profession, and their organizations will be indispensable elements in a system of genuine industrial democracy. Okay. I mean, yeah, I agree with the workers achieving fair worker rules and uh, sharing control of the industry and profession. Um, this last part I don't really get. It's a bit wordy for me. But anyways, the labor code should be uniform throughout the country, but the achievement of this and is difficult so long as jurisdiction over labor legislation under the BNA Act is mainly in the hands of the provinces. I don't know what the BNA Act is. Let's Google that real quick. Oh, British North America. Okay, that's their constitution. We'll just read this real quick. The Constitution Act 1867 is part of major part of the Constitution of Canada. I also got to look at that, like the one that we used to have. There's so much to read about this shit, but anyways, the act created a federal dominion and defines much of the operation of the government of Canada. Yeah. Okay. It's just like brings what we have today, pretty much. The systems that we have today. It's probably really important, but I just don't remember what exactly the BNA Act entails. Maybe for another stream I can read up on that. But anyways, so it's mainly in the hands of the provinces, and it's urgently necessary, therefore, that the BNA Act be amended to make such a national labor code possible. They need to change it, is what they're saying. It's what they mean by amended, right? Do I remember that word correctly? Minor changes, yeah. Gotcha. Oh, they do go over the changes here, so okay, that's good. So the eighth policy here is socialized health services, publicly organized health, hospital and medical services. Remember that in the 1930s they didn't really have, at least in Canada, they didn't have public health care and socialized medicine. So they needed to put this in here as well, you know. With the advance of medical science and maintenance of a healthy population has become a function for every civilized community, should undertake responsibility. Yes, okay. Health services should be made at least as freely available as their educational services today. But under a system which is mainly one of private enterprise. Hold up a sec. Something's wrong with my computer's image. 1 second. My night light is on because it's like 9 o'clock now. Let's turn that off. Okay, I think I'm gonna take a little break and then do some more reading after this. I think we're at like policy 8 and there's like 14 of them, so we're a bit more than halfway there. But yeah, like this is just me trying to understand what the CCF foundation was at the time, and that'll help me understand how they became the NDP and how Canada's socialists kind of came more into the idea of social democracy. Uh, to be honest, when I read these things, my thoughts are like all over the place. But anyways, I'm gonna just do one thing on my computer real quick. 1 sec. Okay, let's get back to some fucking reading. Alright, so I was in the middle of this here, and yeah, so they're saying that medical science has been advanced and that everyone should have access to public health care, just like the educational services today that we have. But under a system which is mainly one of private enterprise, the costs of proper medical care such as the wealthier members of society can easily afford, are present are at present prohibitive of great masses of the people. Yeah, they just mean like it prohibits people from accessing the care that they need, and only people with a lot of money could access healthcare at the time, at least in Canada. Um, Properly organized system of public health services, including medical and dental care, which would stress the prevention rather than the cure of illness, should be extended to all our people in both rural and urban areas. This is an enterprise in which Dominion, provincial, and municipal authorities, yeah, as well as medical and dental professions can cooperate. So, we got this at least. At least today we got some socialized health services. Not all. Like, we still have to pay for pharmaceutical companies for medications, but we got insurance for that. And dentists we still have to pay for, but anyway, we saw a lot of progress from the 1930s till now in terms of that. That's nice. Anyways, the BNA Act. The amendment of the Canadian Constitution without infringing upon racial and religious minorities' rights or upon legitimate provincial claims to autonomy so as to give the Dominion government adequate powers to deal effectively with urgent economic problems, which are essentially national in scope. The abolition of the Canadian Senate, who proposed that the necessary amendments to the BNA Act shall be obtained as speedily as required, safeguards being inserted to ensure that the existing rights of racial and religious minorities shall not be changed without their consent. What is chiefly needed today is the placing in the hands of the national government of more power to control national economic development. And remember, by today, they just mean back in the 1930s. Uh, in a rapidly changing economic environment, our political constitution must be reasonably flexible. The present division of powers between Dominion and provinces reflects the conditions of a pioneer, mainly agricultural community in 1967. Our constitution must be brought into line with the increasing industrialization of the country and the consequent centralization of economic and financial power. I just read a fuck ton. I didn't understand that. Okay. Uh, Brought into line with the increasing industrialization of the country. Yeah, okay. I think they're just saying that it should change as our industry is changing as well in the country, and our constitution needs to be flexible. I do know that Canada's constitution is really weird. Um, they did go over it a bit in our civics course, like in high school years ago, but I don't remember it. So future reading on the bucket list. Um, yeah, so I read that, which has taken place over the last 2 generations. The principle laid down in the Quebec Resolution of the Fathers of Confederation should be applied to the conditions of 1933, that there be a general government charged with matters of common interest to the whole country and local governments for each of the provinces, charged with the control of local matters. Okay. Canadian Senate, which was originally created to protect provincial rights, but has failed even in its function, has developed into a bulwark of capitalist interests, as is illustrated by the large number of company dictatorships held by its aged members. So that was the Canadian Senate back in the 1930s, and in its peculiar composition of a fixed number of members appointed for life, it is one of the most reactionary assemblies in the civilized world. It is standing obstacle All progressive legislation. Yeah, yeah. All right, and yeah, they want to abolish it. Sounds good. Uh, okay, I'm wondering if I want to continue reading this or not. I might skim through this a bit. Um, a foreign policy. So for external relations, a foreign policy designed to obtain international economic cooperation and to promote disarmament and world peace. I know that the CCF originally like wanted something like a United Nations, where the countries would work together in trade. That's what they mean by international economic cooperation. So Canada has a vital interest in world peace. We propose, therefore, to do everything in our power to advance the idea of international cooperation. Yeah, okay. By a League of Nations. Yeah, okay. And the International Labour Organization. Yeah, today called the United Nations. We would extend our diplomatic machinery for keeping in touch with the main centers of world interest. We believe that genuine international cooperation is incompatible with the capitalist regime, which is its present condition of our being mainly a league of capitalist. Okay, yeah, they stand against wars and all that stuff. Within the British Commonwealth, Canada must maintain her autonomy as a completely self-governing nation. Right, because like at the time, in the 1930s, Canada was still had ties to Great Britain and the Crown, and we weren't like completely separate from them back then. So they were still working towards becoming more self-governing. Uh, so let's continue. We must resist all attempts to build up a new economic British Empire in place of the old political one, since such attempts readily lend themselves to the purposes of capitalist exploitation and may easily lead to further world wars. Canada must refuse to be entangled in any more wars fought to make the world safe for capitalism. Hmm. So taxation and public finance. I'm just gonna skim over this real quick. I don't have much to say over this. Yeah, it's Regina. The Regina Manifesto is just the policy of the CCF back in the 1930s, and you can see again they're heavily biased towards socialist policies. And yeah, like I wish I could provide better commentary on this. Like I reading this just makes me feel like I need to read more about these ideologies and also about the Canadian Constitution because they referenced that a bit before. But it's interesting to see that like even in the 1930s, people were thinking about these kinds of changes. People wanted radical change back then too. Um, but yeah, let's continue. I'm almost there. Taxation and public finance. So there's a new taxation policy, not only to raise public revenues, but also to lessen the glaring inequalities. Gotcha. I won't read all of this actually. So at present, they raise a large proportion of the revenues from such levies as custom duties and sales taxes, the main burden of which falls upon the masses. Right, right, okay. Uh, Here they just want to move their taxation from the people to from the masses to maybe companies, like because that makes sense. Like with from the sales taxes, I mean even today the GST is getting higher, and But anyways, that was back then, back in the 1930s. I won't go into this too much. We also believe in the necessity for an immediate revision of the basis of dominion and provincial sources of revenue, so as to produce a coordinated and equitable system of taxation through Canada. Right, because like if you want to make an equitable system, then you need to revise how our government gets taxes. Or yeah, like because the system needs to work together, right? Uh, an inevitable effect of the capitalist system is the debt-creating character of public financing. All public debts have enormously increased, and fixed interest charges paid thereon. So yeah, okay. All right. Skim over that. Freedom. Ooh, okay. It's a bit more interesting than taxes. Freedom of speech and assembly for all. Repeal of Section 98 of the Criminal Code. Amendment of the Immigration Act to prevent the present inhumane policy of deportation. Nice. I do need to read on the Immigration Act because I don't know how inhumane they were back then. Um, Equal treatment before the law of all residents of Canada, irrespective of race, nationality, or religious or political beliefs. In recent years, Canada has seen an alarming growth of fascist tendencies among all government authorities. So, fascism, from what I know, is just a mix of the different ideologies together, like a mix of communism. Wait, I think so. No, no. Fascism is a mix of conservatism and progressivism. If like we want to put it in simple terms, right? And because like you see a lot of the word fascist being thrown around in the internet, but that's just what it means. It's a mix of conservatism and progressivism, and yeah, like so they're seeing these fascist tendencies among government authorities. The most elementary rights of freedom of speech and assembly have been arbitrarily denied to workers and to all whose public, political, and social views do not meet with the approval of those in power. The lawless and brutal conduct of the police in certain centers is in preventing public meetings and in dealing with political prisoners must cease. Oh yeah, like I don't know. I don't know how they treated political prisoners back then. And there's still brutal conduct of the police in certain centers back then too. Yep. Oh god. So Section 98 of the Criminal Code, which has been used as a weapon of political oppression by a panic-stricken capitalist government. Yeah, I can't really go to Section 90. I guess I can Google it real quick right now. Section 98 of Canada's Criminal Code was a law enacted after the Winnipeg General Strike of the 1919 banning unlawful associations. It was used in the 1930s against the Communist Party of Canada. Oh yeah, okay. The law was extremely broad and carried a penalty of 20 years just for like unlawful associations, huh? So, okay, it's been used as a weapon to politically oppress those who don't fall in line with capitalist ideals. And like they done this for the Communist Party of Canada in the 1930s. Okay, I can see why I can see why they want to get rid of that shit. It was an old one, but luckily we don't have that. And they're saying it must be wiped off the statute book, and those who have been imprisoned under it must be released. Oh, fuck yeah. Like 20 years in prison just for not falling under capitalist ideals or supporting a party who. That's fucked up. Like, what the fuck? Yep, so that sounds good. And it's gone now. We achieved this. Well, I mean, like, it's still expected to support capitalism today, and like, today you won't find any radical socialist movements in Canada. So I don't know if it's completely gone. Like, it's this, they're not going to imprison someone for 20 years who supports socialism, but it's still kind of taboo to talk about it, or like to make a party that's completely socialist. Because like the NDP today, like I said, it's mostly social democratic. There's some socialists in the party too, but for the most part, they still want capitalism to exist. They just don't want people to be homeless. They don't want people to be in poverty, and so far that sounds right to me. So, okay, we stand for full economic, political, and religious liberty. Social justice. Home stretch. Okay, so the 13th policy, social justice. The establishment of a commission composed of psychiatrists, psychologists, socially minded jurists. Holy fuck! Like I can barely read at this point. I think it's been over an hour since I read this. There's a lot of shit here for sure. I'm almost done. To deal with matters pertaining to crime and punishment and the general administration of law, in order to humanize the law and to bring it to harmony. Yeah. While the removal of economic inequality will do much to overcome the most glaring injustices in the treatment of those who came into conflict with the law, our present archaic system must be changed. So that present system was in the 1930s, and I don't know that much about it, but they're looking to add a national commission to these health workers, whose duty it shall be to devise a system of prevention and correction consistent with other features of a new social order. Okay. Last one is the emergency program. The assumption by the Dominion government of direct responsibility for dealing with the present critical unemployment situation. Well, yeah, they okay, like emergency housing, emergency income, and all that stuff. Fuck yes. Uh, the adoption of measures to relieve the extremity of the crisis, such as a program of public spending and housing, and other enterprises that will increase the real wealth of Canada. Yep, that sounds great. We're still fighting for that shit today. Okay, so the extent of unemployment and the widespread suffering which it has caused creates a situation with provincial and municipal governments have long been unable to cope and forces upon the Dominion government direct responsibility for dealing with the crisis as the only authority with national resources adequate to meet the situation. This is a bit wordy for me. Okay, it just means that political and municipal governments hadn't had enough power to provide these emergency programs. It's always been the Dominion government, today known as the federal government, providing these things like stimulus checks and employment insurance and stuff like that. No, not employment insurance, but uh, I get what this means. At least I think so. Underemployed workers must be secured in tenure of their homes, and the scale and methods of relief, at present altogether inadequate, must be such as to preserve decent human standards of living. Okay. Recognized that the CCF government has come into power, even after a certain period of time must elapse before the planned economy can be fully worked out. During this brief transitional period, proposed to provide work and purchasing power to those now unemployed by a far-reaching program of public expenditure on housing, slum clearance, hospitals, libraries, and all that fun stuff for both town and country. So yeah, like it's good that they mentioned this too at the end. Like radical change needs to make a gradual transition, right? Because and they need to take the economy into consideration as well, how the government does taxing, how all the things that we just read came into play, and how these far-reaching programs would affect all these different things here, like community halls. And yeah, my brain is kind of tired now, but I felt like I needed to go over this because they do reference this manifesto a lot in the Party of Conscience book that I showed in the beginning. And yeah, like that's what the CCF government standed for. They wanted to eradicate capitalism and bring about radical socialist policies, a lot of which I agree with. Like I agree that there should be more government programs that help support labor workers and make sure no one is homeless, everyone can afford essential meals or are provided essential meals. You don't even have to pay for fucking things like bread by a private owner. We still do that today. Fuck. Uh, but yeah, that's it. That's the Regina Manifesto. Um, Obviously, it's heavily biased towards a socialist point of view because this is a socialist party we're talking about here. Uh, this is the policies and how what the CCF first stood for, or what the NDP first stood for in the 1930s. And yes, so that's pretty much all I wanted to go over for this live stream. I just want to double check here, like how long I've been reading this shit for. All right, live stream. 1 second. Yeah, it's been like an hour and hour and 40 minutes. Shit, almost. Yeah, but that was the Regina Manifesto, and yeah, that was an interesting read, at least for me. I know this is gonna turn off some people reading this, and I'll admit I have my own biases when it comes to left-wing topics. That's because I grew up in a very liberal town, and I don't see any good in charging essential needs pretty much. And yeah, I agree with a lot of what this Regina Manifesto had to say. And besides that, I think I'm going to stop this live stream now and make clips. I'm gonna go over it again, do some edits, and pick out the parts that really stood out to me the most. Because this was a lot. I don't think I'm gonna do this kind of live stream again, just because it's a lot to go over. Maybe I can talk about it in a shorter video later. But anyways, this was the Regina Manifesto stream, 1930s. The CCF first started, and that's all for me. I'm gonna stop the stream now. Goodbye.